Emma walked slowly down Oak Street, her hand resting gently on her growing belly. The baby inside her moved softly as she made her way home from the doctor's office, at 7 months pregnant. Every step felt heavier than before. The autumn air was cool and fresh, and golden leaves fell quietly from the trees above her. The quiet neighborhood was peaceful and calm. Children played in their front yards, while their mothers watched from porches. Emma smiled as she passed the familiar houses. She had lived in this area for 2 years with her husband James, and she loved how safe and friendly it felt. The doctor had given her good news today about the baby, and she was excited to share it with James. But her peaceful walk suddenly changed when she reached the white house with the picket fence. A large German shepherd in the front yard began barking frantically at her. The dog's deep, urgent barks echoed through the quiet street. Emma stopped walking and stared at the animal in confusion and fear. The dog's name was Max, though Emma did not know this yet. He belonged to Henry, a 72-year-old man who lived alone in the White House. Max was usually the calmest, gentlest dog in the neighborhood. Children often petted him through the fence, and he never made a sound. He was known as the friendly dog who wagged his tail at everyone. But today was completely different. Max paced back and forth in the yard, his eyes never leaving Emma. His barking was desperate and urgent, unlike anything the neighbors had ever heard before. Between his loud calls, he whimpered and whined, as if he was trying to tell everyone something very important. Emma felt confused and frightened. She had never seen this dog before, but his behavior seemed directed only at her. "What's wrong with you?" she whispered to herself, feeling tears begin to form in her eyes. She wondered if she had done something to upset the animal. Maybe she smelled strange to him. Or maybe he did not like pregnant women. The barking continued, growing louder and more frantic with each passing minute. Max strained against his leash, trying to get closer to Emma. His behavior was so unusual and disturbing that it began to attract attention from all the neighbors around. Mrs. Wilson, an elderly woman who lived across the street, came out of her house to see what was causing all the noise. She frowned when she saw the scene unfolding before her. Mr. Thompson, who lived next door to Henry, shook his head disapprovingly as he watched from his front porch. More neighbors began gathering on the sidewalk, whispering among themselves about what they were seeing. Emma felt embarrassed and scared as she noticed the judgmental looks on some faces. She could see people pointing at her and talking quietly to each other. She wondered what they were thinking about her and why this was happening. All she wanted was to get home safely to James, who was waiting for her with a warm dinner ready. On the table, the dog's barking showed no signs of stopping. If anything, it became more intense and desperate. Emma began to feel dizzy and overwhelmed by the stressful situation. Her head started to pound with a sharp pain, and she felt nauseous. She thought it was just stress from the embarrassing situation, but something deeper was wrong with her body that she did not understand yet. Unable to continue walking, Emma sat down on a nearby wooden bench to rest. The old bench was weathered and worn, but it felt good to sit down and take the weight off her feet. She placed both hands on her belly, trying to calm herself and the baby inside. She took deep breaths, hoping the strange situation would end soon. Max's barking became even more desperate when Emma sat down. He jumped up against the fence, his paws scratching at the wood as he tried to reach her. His behavior was so unusual and concerning that someone in the crowd decided to call the police for help. Emma's heart raced as she realized the situation was getting worse instead of better. She did not understand why this was happening to her. All she had done was walk down the street like she did every day. She had not threatened the dog or done anything wrong to deserve this treatment. The neighbors continued to gather, and Emma could hear their whispered conversations growing louder. Some seemed to think the dog was being aggressive toward her because of her race. Others wondered if something was wrong with the animal's mind. No one understood what was really happening, and Emma felt more alone and scared than ever before. 2 police officers arrived within minutes of receiving the call. Officer Davis was a tall woman with kind eyes who had been working in the neighborhood for 5 years. Officer Brown was a younger man who had recently joined the force. They had expected to find a simple case of an aggressive dog, but what they saw was much more confusing. They found Max still barking intensely at Emma, who now sat on the wooden bench looking very pale and confused. Her face had lost its color, and she seemed to be having trouble breathing properly. The dog's barking had not stopped for even a moment since the officers arrived. Henry, the dog's owner, came rushing out of his house as fast as his elderly legs could carry him. At 72 years old, he moved slowly but with determination to reach his beloved pet. His grey hair was messy from his afternoon nap, and he wore his old garden clothes. "I don't understand what's happening," Henry said, his voice shaking with worry and confusion. "Max has never behaved like this before in all the years I've had him. He's the gentlest dog you'll ever meet. Children play with him every day, officer." Davis approached Emma carefully, not wanting to make the situation worse. She had dealt with many animal incidents before, but this seemed different somehow. "Ma'am, are you all right? Did the dog try to hurt you or bite you?" Emma shook her head weakly, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, he didn't try to hurt me. He just started barking when I walked by his house. I don't know why he's doing this. I've never seen him before today." The neighbors had gathered round in a large circle, whispering among themselves and pointing at the scene. Some assumed the worst, thinking the dog was reacting badly to Emma's presence because of her race. Others wondered if the dog was sick or dangerous. The atmosphere grew tense and uncomfortable as more people joined the crowd. Mrs. Wilson crossed her arms and spoke loudly to her neighbor. "I've never seen that dog act like this before. Something must be wrong with that poor woman." Mr. Thompson nodded in agreement, but his expression showed he was thinking something different. Henry knelt beside Max, trying to calm him down with gentle words and soft touches. "SHH, boy, what's gotten into you today? This isn't like you at all." But Max wouldn't stop barking. If anything, his barking became more urgent and desperate as time passed. The dog's eyes remained fixed on Emma, and he continued to strain against his leash, trying to get closer to her. His behavior was so intense that it made everyone uncomfortable. Some neighbors began to step back, worried that the dog might break free from his leash. Emma began feeling strange sensations throughout her body. Her head pounded with a sharp, throbbing pain that was getting worse by the minute. She felt nauseous and dizzy, as if the world was spinning round her. Her vision became blurry, and she had trouble focusing on what people were saying. At first, Emma thought it was just stress from the embarrassing situation. Being the center of attention like this was making her nervous and upset. But as the minutes passed, she realized something deeper was wrong with her body. The pain in her head was unlike anything she had ever experienced before. "I just want to go home," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. She felt helpless and scared, not understanding why this was happening to her. All she wanted was to be safe in her house with James, away from all these staring eyes and the loud barking. Officer Brown noticed that Emma's condition seemed to be getting worse rather than better. He had been trained to recognize medical emergencies, and something about her pale color and confused state worried him. He radioed for medical assistance, sensing that this situation was more serious than a simple dog incident. "We need medical assistance at Oak Street." He spoke into his radio. "We have a pregnant woman who appears to be in distress." Max's barking continued to echo through the quiet street. A desperate sound that seemed to carry a message no one could understand. The dog's urgency was increasing rather than decreasing, and his behavior was becoming more frantic with each passing moment. Henry tried everything he could think of to calm Max down. But nothing worked. The dog ignored his owner's commands and continued his desperate calls. It was as if Max was trying to communicate something very important that no one could understand. The crowd of neighbors grew larger as more people came out of their houses to see what was happening. The tension in the air was thick, and everyone seemed to have their own opinion about what was wrong. No one realized that Max's barking was actually a sound that would soon save a life. Emma suddenly felt the world spinning round her like a carnival ride that would not stop. Her vision became blurry and unclear, as if she was looking through foggy glass. She tried to take deep breaths, but her lungs felt heavy and tight. The pounding in her head grew stronger and more painful with each passing second. Before anyone could react or help her, Emma collapsed on the wooden bench. Her body went limp and unconscious, sliding sideways on the old seat. The crowd of neighbors gasped in shock and fear as they watched the pregnant woman fall. "Call an ambulance right now," Officer Davis shouted loudly, her voice cutting through the noise of the crowd. She rushed toward Emma while pulling out her radio to call for emergency medical help. The situation had suddenly become much more serious than anyone had expected. Max's barking became even more frantic and desperate than before. He strained against his leash with all his strength, trying to reach Emma on the bench. His powerful body pulled and jumped as he fought to get closer to her. His behavior was no longer just noise that bothered the neighbors. It was a desperate cry for help that finally made sense. The paramedics arrived quickly in their bright white ambulance with flashing red lights. Sarah, the lead paramedic, was a woman in her 30s who had been saving lives for 10 years. She immediately began checking Emma's vital signs with her medical equipment. Her face grew serious and worried as she read the numbers on her machines. "Her blood pressure is dangerously high," Sarah announced to her team in an urgent voice. "This looks like severe preeclampsia. We need to get her to the hospital immediately, or we could lose both mother and baby." Henry's eyes widened with sudden understanding as he heard the paramedic's words. "Oh my goodness," he whispered to himself, his voice filled with amazement. Max knew something was wrong. He was trying to tell us all along. The old man's mind raced as he remembered Max's training from years ago. Everything suddenly made perfect sense to him. The dog had not been acting aggressive or mean toward Emma. He had been trying to save her life as the paramedics worked quickly to stabilize Emma. Henry explained the truth to Officers Davis and Brown. His voice shook with emotion. As he spoke, "Max used to be a medical alert dog before he retired and came to live with me. He was trained by professionals to detect medical emergencies in people." The crowd of neighbors fell completely silent as they listened to Henry's explanation. They had all been wrong about what was happening. Max had not been a dangerous dog at all. He can sense changes in blood pressure, seizures, heart problems, and other medical conditions. Henry continued. "He worked with the police force for 8 years before he retired. I adopted him because I thought he deserved a peaceful home after all his service." Max had stopped barking now that help had arrived and Emma was getting the medical care she needed, but he continued to watch Emma intently, his brown eyes focused on her face. His tail wagged slightly, as if he somehow knew she would be okay. Now that the doctors were helping her, the paramedics worked quickly and efficiently to prepare Emma for transport to the hospital. They checked her breathing, monitored her heart rate, and gave her oxygen to help her breathe better. Sarah spoke into a radio, telling the hospital what to expect when they arrived. He wasn't being aggressive toward her at all, Officer Brown realized, looking at Max with new respect and understanding. He was trying to save her life. He knew she was in danger before any of us did. The neighbors who had gathered looked ashamed of their earlier thoughts and whispers. They had judged the situation without knowing the facts. Mrs. Wilson wiped tears from her eyes as she realized how wrong she had been. Mr. Thompson shook his head. Feeling guilty about his assumptions, Emma was carefully placed on a stretcher and rushed to the hospital in the ambulance. The paramedics worked to keep her stable during the ride, monitoring her condition every moment. Sarah radioed ahead to let the doctors know exactly what they were dealing with at the hospital. Doctors confirmed that Emma was experiencing a life-threatening pregnancy complication called preeclampsia. Her blood pressure had risen to dangerous levels that could have caused seizures, strokes, or even death. Without immediate treatment, both she and her unborn baby could have died. The doctors explained that if Max had not alerted everyone to the emergency, Emma might have collapsed at home, where no one would have found her in time. The dog's desperate barking had literally saved 2 lives that day at the hospital. Dr. Mitchell sat down with Emma's husband James to explain what had happened to his wife. The doctor was a kind man in his 50s who had delivered hundreds of babies during his career. His face was serious as he spoke about Emma's condition. "Your wife had severe preeclampsia," Dr. Mitchell explained in a gentle voice. "Her blood pressure was so high it could have caused seizures, strokes, or even worse complications. If she hadn't gotten help when she did, we could have lost both her and the baby." James held Emma's hand tightly as she rested in the white hospital bed. She was awake now, but still weak from her ordeal. Her face had more color than before, and the doctors said she was getting better with each hour that passed. "But how did anyone know she was in danger?" James asked, confused by the whole situation. "She just called me and said a dog was barking at her. I didn't understand why that was important." Emma squeezed her husband's hand weakly. "I didn't know either. I thought the dog was just being mean to me. I was so scared and embarrassed by all the attention." The story of what had happened spread quickly through the neighborhood like wildfire. People called their friends and family to tell them about the amazing dog who had saved a pregnant woman's life. Everyone wanted to know more about Max and his special abilities. Henry visited Emma in the hospital the next day, bringing fresh flowers from his garden and a warm smile. The elderly man walked slowly into the room, his eyes bright with happiness that Emma was safe and recovering well. "I wanted to come and explain about Max," Henry said softly as he placed the colorful flowers on the bedside table. "I think you deserve to know the truth about what happened and why he acted the way he did." Emma and Jane listened carefully as Henry told them about Max's incredible background and training. The old man's voice was filled with pride as he spoke about his beloved dog. "Max worked with the police force for 8 years, Henry explained. He was trained by experts to detect medical emergencies before they became life-threatening. He could sense changes in blood pressure, heart problems, seizures, and other dangerous conditions." Henry's eyes grew misty as he continued the story. "When he retired from active duty, I adopted him because I thought he deserved a peaceful, quiet home after all his years of service. I never thought his training would save someone's life again." Emma's eyes filled with tears as she listened to Henry's words. "I thought he didn't like me because I was different. I was so scared and embarrassed when he started barking. I didn't understand what was happening." "Oh, dear child," Henry said gently, patting Emma's hand like a loving grandfather. "Max loved you the moment he saw you. He knew you needed help, and he was trying to get everyone's attention the only way he knew how. His barking was his way of calling for help. The neighbors who had gathered that day and made assumptions felt deeply ashamed of their behavior. They realized they had judged the situation without knowing the facts, and they wanted to make things right. Mrs. Wilson, the elderly woman who had frowned at the scene, came to visit Emma with a beautiful homemade blanket for the baby. She had spent hours knitting it with soft pink and blue yarn, and her eyes were filled with tears of regret. "I'm so sorry I thought badly of you," Mrs. Wilson said quietly. "I should have known better than to judge without understanding what was really happening." Mr. Thompson had shaken his head disapprovingly, offered to help with groceries when Emma came home from the hospital. He promised to check on her regularly and make sure she had everything she needed. Officer Davis and Officer Brown visited Emma too, still amazed by what they had witnessed that day. Both officers had been working in law enforcement for many years, but they had never seen anything like Max's heroic behavior in all my years of police work. Officer Davis said with wonder in her voice, "I've never seen anything like this. That dog is a true hero. He saved your life and your baby's life." Officer Brown nodded in agreement. "Max should get a medal for what he did. He's proof that heroes come in all shapes and sizes." Emma recovered fully with proper medical care from the skilled doctors and nurses. Her blood pressure returned to normal levels, and her baby continued to grow healthy and strong inside her. The doctors said both mother and child would be perfectly fine. The experience had changed Emma's life in ways she never expected. She learned that sometimes what seems frightening is actually love trying to protect us. 3 months later, Emma gave birth to a healthy baby girl at the same hospital where she had been treated for her emergency. The delivery went smoothly, and both mother and baby were strong and well. Emma and Jane spent hours looking at their beautiful daughter, grateful for the miracle of her safe arrival. They decided to name her Hope, because their story had taught them that hope can come from the most unexpected places. The name felt perfect for a child whose life had been saved by a dog's love before she was even born. Hope had bright eyes and a gentle spirit that reminded everyone of peace and new beginnings. When Hope was 2 weeks old, Emma bundled her carefully in soft blankets and returned to Oak Street to visit Henry and Max. She walked slowly down the familiar street, remembering the frightening day that had changed everything. But now she felt only gratitude and love for what had happened. The moment Max saw Emma approaching the White House, his tail wagged furiously with joy and excitement. He approached her gently and carefully, as if he somehow knew she was carrying something precious and delicate. His movements were calm and protective, showing the gentle nature that Henry had always known. "Hello, old friend," Emma said softly, kneeling down carefully to pet Max while holding baby Hope in her arms. "I came to introduce you to Hope. She's the little girl you helped save." Max sniffed the baby carefully and gently, his wet nose barely touching her tiny blanket. Then he sat beside Emma, his calm presence bringing peace and comfort to the moment. His brown eyes seemed to understand the importance of what was happening. Henry wiped tears from his eyes as he watched the touching scene unfold in his front. "Yod, you know, Max has been different since that day," the old man said with emotion in his voice. "It's like he has a new purpose again. He seems happier and more alert than he's been in years." Emma and Henry became close friends over the following weeks and months. They would sit on Henry's porch and talk about life, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. Max visited Emma's home regularly, becoming Hope's gentle guardian and protector as she grew. The neighborhood learned an important lesson about not judging situations by their appearance. People began to think more carefully before making assumptions about others. Mrs. Wilson started a neighborhood watch program focused on helping rather than judging. Mr. Thompson organized community dinners where everyone could get to know each other better. The story of Max's heroic act spread far beyond Oak Street, inspiring people in other towns and cities to look deeper before making assumptions about what they see. Local newspapers wrote articles about the amazing dog who saved her life, and television stations interviewed Emma and Henry about their experience. Emma started volunteering at a local animal shelter, sharing Max's story with visitors and helping people understand the incredible abilities of service animals. She spoke at schools and community centers, teaching children and adults about the importance of not judging by appearances. Sometimes Emma would tell visitors with a warm smile, "What seems frightening is actually love trying to protect us." Max taught me that heroes come in all forms, and miracles can happen when we least expect them. We must always look beyond the surface to find the truth. As Hope grew from a tiny baby into a walking toddler, she would play with Max in Henry's garden. The gentle dog would watch over her carefully, making sure she didn't wander too far or get into trouble. Hope would giggle and clap her hands as Max performed simple tricks for entertainment. The little girl never knew that this gentle dog had saved her life before she was even born. To her, Max was simply a loving friend who always made her feel safe and happy. The bond between them was special and unique, a connection formed through an act of love that no one had understood at first. Henry often watched Hope and Max playing together, his heart filled with joy at seeing his beloved dog so happy and purposeful again. "She's given him a new reason to live," he would tell Emma, "and he's given her a guardian angel." Emma's family grew closer to Henry, treating him like a beloved grandfather. James would help with repairs round Henry's house, and Emma would bring him homemade meals. They had become a family connected by love and gratitude rather than blood. The story of Max, Emma, and Hope became a symbol of hope and understanding in their community. It reminded everyone that miracles can happen in ordinary moments, and that love often comes in forms we don't expect. Their experience taught an entire neighborhood that looking beyond appearances can reveal the most beautiful truths about life and human nature. The end.